I'm Paul Daugherty with Philanthropy, West Virginia. It's such a pleasure to have you joining us for another edition of Philanthropy on the Frontlines, a conversation and a podcast platform through Philanthropy, West Virginia, telling the story of rural philanthropy here in West Virginia and Central Appalachia. We're so honored this time to have with us the Executive Director of the United Way of Marion and Taylor Counties, Brett White, who also serves as Chair of the West Virginia United Way Collaborative. Brett is a native of Braxton County, a lifelong West Virginian who's done tremendous work across the civic sector and working on multiple different efforts from national service to volunteer efforts, as well as within philanthropy, and now leading up the United Way. We're so pleased to have you with us today, Brett. Could you please, tell us a little bit about yourself that I didn't capture and how you got into philanthropy?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Well, I'm really thrilled to join you today and be able to talk a little bit about philanthropy and the great work that is being done across United Ways in West Virginia. I began my career in service at an early age in high school, actually, when I founded a nonprofit, Youth Service West Virginia, and carried that through with me through college and through into my career. And so attending WVU in Morgantown, I certainly was involved in a lot of volunteer projects and activities. And then I did a year as an AmeriCorps Vista. And that really helped integrate me into the community there in Morgantown and really showed me, certainly just continued to show me about my love of giving back and my love of service, which sometimes, is a great thing. Sometimes is a challenge as well that I really think this work is a calling, and for somebody to be in this field as a career, I think you really have to love it and love what you do. And certainly that year as a Vista helped reinforce that in my life. And then I went on to work at the United Way in Morgantown. And so I worked at the United Way in Morgantown for 5 years as their director of development and coordinated the $1.5 million fundraising campaign there. And then when this job position opened up just a little over 3 years ago, I came here to Fairmont and I've been here just now, going on, well, I guess this will go on 4 years now here in Fairmont with the United Way of Marion and Taylor Counties. So continuing that work that I started long ago. But again, I think as a calling, I probably will see this work in my life probably forever.
Excellent. Such a good organization. I know you did tremendous work there, so thank you. You've really helped transform a United Way of Marion County into a dual county of service, but it's, campaign goals, I keep saying, going up each year, exceeding records. Whatever's happened in Marion County, Taylor County, you're there helping lead the effort, especially during the pandemic. Share with us about the United Way, its evolution and growth, and where you see it going in the years to come.
Sure. Well, and our United Way is 82 years old. It started as the community chest, and then it has morphed several times. It morphed into the United Fund of Marion County, and then into the United Way of Marion County, which is where we were when I arrived here. We were a one county United Way. Our campaign goal was just over $400,000. And I think we were starting to struggle with relevancy in our community. I think we were not maybe necessarily focusing on some of the areas we needed to. And so we were starting to slide backwards in those numbers, and we were starting to see an involvement, kind of moving in the wrong direction. And so I think that's why they looked at bringing me in with the experiences that I had in Morgantown, was to really look at how can we continue to evolve our United Way and change and become a more nimble and efficient organization. And I think that's what we started immediately. We looked at our corporate philanthropy partners and we said, where can we meet you? We want to meet you where you are. If you want us to help you and participate in volunteer work, we're there. If you want us to help you to do fundraising, we're there. If you want us to help you tackle a social issue, we're there. And so we really became a much more broad organization when we talk about the initiatives that we undertake and the things that we do. And I think that message resonated with those companies. And so we've seen our campaign goal from just over 4 to now this year we raised $520,000. So crossing over that $500,000 mark 2 years ago was a big accomplishment for us that we had not achieved in the past. Then we added Taylor County into our coverage area. Taylor County was one of the counties in West Virginia that was not covered by a United Way. And we saw the need there, and we began that that journey with Taylor County by, visiting agencies, talking to them about the needs. And what we found out was the needs in Grafton and the needs in Taylor County were the same as the needs in Fairmont and in Morgantown and in Kingwood and all the other cities. And so we said we need to start looking at expanding our reach to be able to try to solve these problems on a more regional scale than what we're doing right now. And so that merger and that acquisition, bringing Taylor County in, has been really great for us. We've had so much hard work being done in Taylor County that we've been able to help collaborate on and expand and build on. And it's just been really neat for us to now be Marion and Taylor counties, a $500,000 United Way from where we were when we just started, 3.5 years ago.
That's just outstanding, tremendous growth and impact. And I appreciate your regional approach. As you growing up in Braxton County, you probably, personally the value of looking across counties. And so that synergy you're building is noticeable, not just, I think, on the ground, but I just noticed on how much in statewide press and stuff is picked up.
Sure.
Your organization has responded, yourself as a leader especially, has responded to this time, this pandemic, since a year ago now. Can you talk to us about how you guys have responded and led during, but also what are you looking at for the future?
Well, and one thing that we say is that really United Way was built for a crisis like a pandemic. And so that's what we do every day, is we are a collaborator that brings people together to solve issues. And so the minute that we knew the pandemic was going to overtake our daily lives, we flew into action literally that same day as other organizations started closing down, and we ramped up. We launched our COVID Response and Recovery Fund immediately. We were one of the first ones launched in the state so that we could start bringing in dollars, because our goal was to raise dollars and get them out of the door as soon as possible. We wanted those dollars turned around as fast as we could, because we knew in a pandemic, we knew that money was going to be desperately needed right away. We weren't going to be able to hold on to that money. And so we went to work doing that. And we learned things certainly about the virus and about public health that we certainly probably never thought we would know when you talk about masks and you talk about hand sanitizer and all those pieces that, when you think now where we were a year ago, even on this date 1 year ago, we were in a very different place. And we were just looking at some notes from last year. On this very day, we were in a scramble to find hand sanitizer. And so that was one of those pieces. We said, we can be that resource for our community. We can be the one to help do these things. We're not shutting our doors because we know it's too critical to be able to help folks. And so we made sure that we were on those front lines every day. When we secured that hand sanitizer, we drove down past Clarksburg to go pick up 30 gallons of hand sanitizer. We were having individuals making masks and dropping them off all over town and helping distribute them, talking with healthcare workers about how can we provide more resources to you, begging PPE companies around the country. And, Paul, we had worked on that even, just statewide, even trying to bring that PPE into West Virginia. And it was a struggle, but it was such a gratifying experience for us to be able to be in that role where we were seen as a leader in our community, that we could help to, provide those resources. Certainly not where we had imagined we would be in 2020, but it really gives me great pride to see how we weathered that storm and how we were able to do those things in that early months. And then certainly we did. We had to send our staff home to work from home for a few months, but every day still active as we could be in all of the resources, on daily conference calls with our emergency management, with VOAD, with the United Ways around the state, with our 211 network, ensuring that if something was happening, if there was a development, that we were still making sure that we were on the forefront of whatever needed to be done. If that meant dollars, then we were there. If it meant services or supplies, we wanted to make sure that we were the ones on that front line helping to bring those to our community.
Great. I mean, looking back a year now, you mentioned you looked at the notes earlier today. How many pieces of PPE? How many gallons? I mean, like, you guys were not just facilitating for Marion and Taylor counties, you're doing connections across the state. I mean, you probably could count the numbers in your sleep, but unfortunately it's probably more nightmares these days than they are good dreams. But like, if you looked at a year in review, what invention, what innovation, necessity is the parent of invention. I'm paraphrasing the quote. So what innovative things have you learned about yourself, the organization, your donors, the community that could take you forward in the next decade?
Sure. Well, yeah, and when you talk numbers, we brought in 20,000 masks to West Virginia from the United Ways of West Virginia. We brought over hundreds of gallons of hand sanitizer. Our local response fund raised $120,000 in Marion and Taylor counties, which is just a phenomenal testament to the generosity of our community, our donors, and everybody that was involved. And we put that money out to work immediately. And so we've saved back just a very small portion of that money to make sure that we have that available as the eviction moratorium starts to expire. But every other dollar of that, over 100,000 of the 120, has already went out into the community and went right back to work. But the thing that I think I learned about our agency and that we've really developed is being flexible, which is not necessarily United Ways, or we're not really known for that. United Ways are normally known for clinging to our paper pledge cards and not being able to adapt very quickly to a situation, but that is certainly not the case any longer. We have learned to adapt and really pivot, the buzzword of 2020, several times to wherever we need to be. And so we can now change everything we're doing. A workplace campaign that used to be so traditional is now a hybrid that we're able to function in several different scenarios, whether it be completely remote, whether it be virtual, whether it be in person. We're able to switch that on the drop of a hat, where we did not have those mechanisms before, and we certainly were not experienced in doing that before. And then I think that same goes for our donors and our community. If anything, it has just, really solidified in my mind that West Virginia's greatest resources are people. And when there is a problem or there is a need, our people are there. If it's hard work, they're lined up to do that hard work. If it's dollars, they're willing to give every dollar they possibly can to make sure that we're, helping our neighbors. But it was something that I think we all knew. But I think the COVID-19 pandemic certainly has helped show that is absolutely still 100% true in this state. And our donors are going to be there when we need them to step up to the plate.
Excellent. Remind me, how much was the relief fund again? That you went through those numbers so quickly.
So, 120,000 was our local relief fund. Yep.
That's tremendous. So we're talking about the organization, but let's step back and talk about you. You're a leader. It requires a leadership team. You seem to have a very servant leader approach with great humor and great commitment, working numerous hours. So how have you seen your leadership innovate, change, or maybe, it's probably already there, but how has it evolved during this crisis?
Sure. Well, I think one of the things too, I think that we fall into a trap of certainly overworking ourselves. I think we've even had this conversation personally, is that, you have to be able to take time for yourself. That is certainly something we've felt during the pandemic with, compassion fatigue and COVID fatigue, because we've been working nonstop since day one of the pandemic, and we didn't have a break. We didn't have time to take off, but I'm not sure that we really wanted to, because this is, a time that we were in need. And so we knew that we had to step to the plate. But I certainly believe that no leader should ask somebody under them to do something if they're not willing to do it themselves. And that has been prevalent throughout the pandemic. I was out there, lifting out MRE meals out of the back of trucks, just like the rest of the staff members were. And, in a pandemic, it's all hands on deck. We were picking up masks every day. We were making masks. We were pouring hand sanitizer. It wasn't just, staff members. It was every single one of us looking to do those projects. And I think that's how you, lead by example, of course. I think all United Way directors strive to do that. I think all philanthropy leaders strive to do that, of course, to, breed and to make their donors and the community understand that we're all doing this. We certainly don't have $1 million budgets that we are, that we have lots of staff and tons of time, but you put together a core group of great people and you lead them and do the best you can. And hopefully that turns out results. And it certainly has here. I'm very, very fortunate to have a great team that we've assembled here in Marion and Taylor counties. And my fellow United Way directors around the state are just an amazing group of individuals who are so committed to what we do, that it's just really a privilege and just fun to be able to work with them every single day.
Question still stands. Have you taken time off yet?
Well, I didn't think you were going to ask that question, but no, not yet. I'm
Okay.
hoping to soon.
As a colleague and a friend, please
Yeah.
do. I want to keep you fresh.
Yeah.
Well, you referenced your colleagues across the state, all the different United Ways. You all have done tremendous work. Your colleagues, especially with Margaret Ann O'Neill at the United Way of Central West Virginia, Stacy DeSico at the United Way Alliance in the Middle High Valley, having created the West Virginia United Way Collaborative. You serve as chair of that. So please share about this dynamic statewide network that's been evolving, I think, over 2.5, 3 years now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're on year 3 now, which has just been what a ride we've had. And, prior to that, all of our United Ways are certainly much older, in the 80 to 100 years old United Ways, a lot of us. But prior to that, we just did not have a statewide presence. We certainly met maybe once or twice a year, and we would talk about our individual campaigns and share some information, but we never worked together on any kind of collaborative projects or shared mission. And we knew that was something we were going to have to look at. And so 3 years ago, we came to the table and we said, we need to form this collaborative. We need to bring everybody to the table, and everybody needs to have a little, skin in the game. And so that's what we did. We formed the collaborative. I was really honored, certainly, that my colleagues chose me to chair the collaborative. And it's just been a really neat ride for these past 3 years. The real first project we undertook was West Virginia 211. And we knew that was a program that was so critical to West Virginia, and it was on its last leg. It was almost gone. And if the United Ways had not taken over 211, I truly believe it probably would have disappeared from our state altogether. And so we said that cannot happen, and we need to step up. We all share the same mission. We're all the same organization, just different local entities of it. And so that's what we did. We worked hard. It took a lot of time and a lot of fight to make that happen. But now, looking on the other side of a pandemic 3 years later, it's really hard to believe that 211 line that we just took over, 3 years ago, took 20,000 phone calls last year and helped 20,000 West Virginians find the resources and information they needed during a global pandemic. And if United Way was built for a pandemic, 211 was absolutely built for a pandemic. That's exactly what it's for. It's for a disaster crisis like that. And so to be able to weather that in such an early stage of an organization was just a really phenomenal testament to the leadership of all of our colleagues around the state who have, built into the collaborative and been working so hard on it.
Excellent. Just amazing. And when you think about it, kind of the question I asked about your organization and yourself, but as you've looked at the work of 211, it has been the backbone, the spinal cord of connectivity for people who are isolated and challenged during this pandemic. How do you think the United Way Collaboratives change, and how will it move forward, we're still in the pandemic, but then afterwards, what's next?
Well, certainly, yeah. We're still evolving every single day during the pandemic, but what we've developed is even as a young organization, we are light years ahead of where some United Ways were with their 211s 10 years into their programs. The fact that we have 24/7 coverage of our line is a big step forward. We have the text to talk, we have chat, we have new online search functions on our West Virginia 211 website. And so we're just really thrilled we were able to do all that so very quickly. And, I think one of the reasons is because we work so well and so collaboratively in West Virginia when we actually do it. If we actually sit down and get to the table and actually get to that point, we can do it so well because we share so much of the same values, the same pride in our state, the same care for our state across the entire state, that I think when you can actually make that happen, the work becomes easier and the work becomes faster because we all do it together. And so we've been really thrilled to see that, but I think 211 is going to continue to grow. We are now, we're starting to work with the Housing Development Fund on the Mountaineer Rental Assistance Program. That's going to be rolling out in the next few days to help take those calls for, the millions of dollars of rental assistance that's going to be coming into West Virginia. We're expanding and we're working on the online search function so that individuals can search for the resources resources without having to make the call. So maybe they, want to just do it on their own. We want to make that process easier for those individuals. And then we want to continue to grow. We want to make the program better and make sure that our operators continue to receive ongoing training for all the different, calls they receive, whether they be for, the opioid addiction problem. Maybe there's substance abuse. They could be child neglect. They could be food and hunger. They could be rental assistance, eviction. And so the gamut of calls that our operators see is really across the board. And so we want to just make sure that they continue to receive ongoing training and are continuing to make sure they're updated on, the needs of our community and the needs as they change in West Virginia. And I see that continuing to grow and become even more prevalent, hopefully, throughout the region. We still have areas of West Virginia that aren't really using 211 yet. And we want to change that. We want to make sure that we're reaching every county, every area, every community to get that word out about the service. It's certainly available in all 55 counties, but we certainly have areas that are still not using it as effectively as we can.
Excellent. So I heard modernize, adapt, be agile, but also from the standpoint, continue to thrive, look at the ways to refine and be efficient. That's tremendous. Right. You brought up something there about how much we kind of come together during crisis in West Virginia. I want to kind of explore that just a little bit, because it's amazing the level of collaboration we're all seeing out of necessity, out of the need to work together. As we know, the access to financial resources for nonprofits to survive and respond to the 3 to 4 to 5 times fold need of organizations. It's not coming from public sources, so we really have to dig in and be collaborative on the private giving. When you look at, I use the phrase build up better, because a lot of things before the pandemic were not so great in a lot of communities in West Virginia, economically, equity and other matters. But within that is, how do you look at it from a standpoint of the collaboration? How do we not lose this moment to really enhance that when we come out of this time, so that we're still kind of using that neural network, that opportunity to increase? So tell me about what you're thinking in that regard. How do we really do that well?
Yeah, and well, really, I think the question becomes, once we don't have this Zoom collaboration that we've been on for the past year of every single day, how do we continue to build on that? And I think one thing is we don't want to lose the Zoom collaboration, because I think this has been so great for a state like ours. Whereas, when we used to talk about collaborating and going to statewide meetings, you would spend all day in the car traveling across West Virginia. You'd spend 3 hours traveling to Charleston or going to Wheeling or going to Morgantown. And now you're able to hop onto these calls and have the same amount of collaboration, the same amount of interaction without having to leave your office. And so I think one thing is that we need to make sure that these technological advances that we've made through the pandemic don't just disappear when we get out of the pandemic, when we come out the other side, because they really have made us more efficient. They've made us more efficient, and they've made us have more direct contact. And I think that has pushed us to have more collaboration with each other, because we've really had to. Whereas we saw so much being isolated during the pandemic, we've spent every day. I mean, I can't tell you the number of Zoom calls, Paul, that we've been on together, probably. I mean, hundreds and hundreds over the course of the last year, working on these issues. Whereas if this had been pre-pandemic, would that have necessarily happened? Probably not. And so I think it has pushed us into that world. But like I said, I think that West Virginians share such a deep pride in our state and such a deep care that when you finally get to that collaboration table, the ideas come and the work comes and they flow. It's getting to that point. And I think COVID has now pushed us to that point, which I think, whether or not that was a good or bad thing before, I think for West Virginia, I think this has been a good thing, because it has shown us that what we already knew, that when there was a flood, or when there has been, the derecho, or when we were talking about so many of the weather-related disasters we've had in West Virginia, and we've seen our communities come together, that it doesn't require just a disaster to do that. We can do this when we're talking about, and like you just said, when we're talking about equity in our communities, equity, in just so many areas of our life. Working together on those kind of issues, it doesn't have to be a disaster to collaborate. And I think hopefully that's something that we bring out of this pandemic, is that we all need to collaborate more. It's just, everybody wants their piece of the puzzle. And I get that. As a leader of an organization, as somebody who has been a leader for a long time, I understand wanting to have the credit. I get that. I 100% get that. But it's also more important to get the work done. And so being able to work together makes such a huge transitional difference when you're talking about that, when you don't have to worry about who gets the credit. And I think COVID has shown us that nobody cared during COVID who got credit on any of those topics. And so it was something that I think was humbling for everyone, for all the organizations. And it's something that I hope we're going to continue to take forward and build upon by working together. Even when you just look at us, for example, the Philanthropy West Virginia, the Nonprofit Association, and the United Way Collaborative. When you talk about our three agencies and three collaborating groups coming together to work on policy initiatives and to work on behalf of our sector in West Virginia, I think it just shows the passion and care of West Virginia, but it also shows what we can do so much more as a team. And I hope we don't lose that when we come out the other side of COVID-19.
I'll take that as your commitment. I'm right there with you. I think we need to remind everybody, but not just remind, but then actually kind of move into that. What is the build up phase? What is the long-term opportunities?
Yeah.
Thank you. Getting kind of in the realm of philanthropy, and I kind of jokingly say in West Virginia, we have philanthropy with a small p because we don't have billionaire foundations, and they've got more community-placed, community-built philanthropy, United Ways, community foundations, donors in their own right, small family foundations. How do you see philanthropy working differently in West Virginia rural communities? Not a pandemic lens, but just in general, how is it different, you think, than maybe your colleagues see in the more financially well-off parts of the country?
Sure. Well, I think it's also a lot more personal here. I think you can see the projects a lot more clearly here because, like you said, we're not talking about a $1 billion foundation donating to 83,000 different projects. We're talking about a small family foundation who's supporting a critical need in a community that they can probably see with their own very eyes because they probably live in that community and understand the challenges that they're facing. And so I think philanthropy in West Virginia is much more personal to all of us, whether it be the giving of our hard-earned individual dollars, whether it be the giving of our organization dollars or foundation dollars. I think we see it as a much more personal gift in West Virginia because we do have that close personal bond to our state. And I think that's something that we're very prideful about West Virginia, and I love that about us, but I also think that's a challenge that we need to overcome sometimes because we are so careful and so prideful of our state that sometimes that makes us a little more closed off from others. And so I think certainly as we look to try to bring younger people in here, that's one of those concerns, is that they are always so surprised about how much we care about our state and how much we live our identities of our counties. Just the fact that even saying that I grew up in Braxton County, when you go to other states around the country, they certainly don't speak in that kind of language of where you grew up in a county. It's a city, or it's I grew up in Cleveland, or I grew up in Chicago, not I grew up in Cuyahoga County in Ohio, but here it's our attachment to the pride that we show in our rural roots. But I think when you look at it from the philanthropy side, it's because we see those concerns, we live them. We live them every day. We live the lack of broadband access in the state. We live it every day. We see it from our neighbors. We see it for ourselves. We live that children are not being educated at the levels they should be. We see the homeless individuals walking down the street. We see all of these things, the opioid epidemic that has ravaged our state. We see those firsthand. And so when we're talking about investing dollars, whether it be from a family foundation, a smaller foundation, or even our largest foundations in the state, I still think it's a very personal ask and a very personal investment when we're talking about what we're giving back to and putting money in. That fortunate for us that it is, but I think that's unfortunate for other cities that they don't have that. I don't think you see that when you're talking about a major Fortune 500 foundation donating to small projects. I don't think you have that personal connection that we do. And I think that's really great for West Virginia.
So would you say philanthropy here is actually on the front lines?
Absolutely. I think philanthropy is the front lines of West Virginia. I think whether it's your time, your talent, or your treasure, I think philanthropy is what we build our lives on in West Virginia.
Thank you. So what else would you like to see happen as we move through the pandemic to the next normal?
Oh, so much. No.
I do think
I do think that West Virginia, we need to modernize. We certainly need to modernize our state. And I think it's something that's a hard discussion to have with a lot of different people. We're in a very a state that values our history and values our roots, but we're in a new market, we're in a new world, we're in a global economy, and we need to continue to find ways to diversify that and to make younger people want to stay here, because that's the only way we're going to continue to have success in West Virginia, is if future generations want to stay here and raise families here and work and live here. If not, our state is going to continue to struggle on so many fronts. And as you hear Governor Justice and many governors, before him talk about wanting to not be the last on every list, it's going to take people being engaged. And I think philanthropy plays a role in that, because I think it shows the best of West Virginia. It does. It shows us, what we can do when we come together and collaborate and work together. But then I think we have so many areas that we still need to work on. And I think that's something that's new for United Ways when you talk about advocacy. United Ways for the longest time did not advocate on behalf of any of issues that would be considered controversial, or maybe, of taking a stand. But what we've found now is that these are, human issues. They are human issues that affect everything we do in our funding, in our organizations. And so it's not only appropriate for us to do it, it's the only way we should be functioning. We should be standing up for these issues and advocating on their behalf when we say that every person is equal, and we fight for the education, health, and financial stability of every person, not only individuals who donate to us, not only individuals of a certain color, not only individuals of a certain sexual orientation. All of those pieces would not have been a United Ways message 10 years ago. And it is now. And so even our work that we've been doing with you at Philanthropy West Virginia and with the Nonprofit Association, that's new for United Ways. And so I think in the past, we were always worried about losing a donor because were we standing up for something maybe they didn't agree with? But now we're standing up for what's right, and we're saying that's what we're doing. And if that means we lose a donor because of that, then maybe we lose a donor. But hopefully maybe we gain somebody else who sees us standing up and taking a stance on these issues that are literally shaping our state and our country for years and years to come and generations to come.
Exceptional, Brett. We're so fortunate to have you in the state, contributing your leadership, your knowledge, and your passion. Thank you for all you do for the United Way, for Marion and Taylor counties, and for the United Way Collaborative. As we kind of wrap up our time together, just any closing thoughts or just stories about your own experience? You mentioned the organization you founded when you were in high school that really seemed to impact you at a very early age and evolve. So just, love to hear a little bit more about yourself and just kind of your final closing thoughts.
Sure. Well, I think it started very early with me, and I think, like I said in the beginning, I think it takes a special person to be in this work for a career and to stay in it forever. We often see individuals use nonprofits as a phenomenal stepping stone for, for-profit, careers, but to stay in it, it really takes a special person. And I feel like that was ingrained in me at an early age. And I loved being able to work on those projects at an early age, working with Governor Underwood's office when we helped to put that organization together and doing that statewide food drive when I was in high school. Other students were asking for dates to the prom. I was asking for canned goods. It was literally just who I was. I set up my office in my mom's kitchen. I spent every afternoon volunteering at the Mountaineer Food Bank in Gasaway. And it was just something that I knew that this is going to be the direction that my life takes. And to have that happen so early on was, I think, something I'm very fortunate, because I knew at that point that was how I wanted to spend my life. And I never wavered on that, even through college, even as I experienced new things and moved to Morgantown. That just only became stronger as I saw the needs in communities change. I went from a very rural community in Braxton to Morgantown, which would be considered probably one of our most progressive cities in the state, and saw the different aspects of living in a city versus living in a rural community. And so it just really made that even more prevalent in my life, to realize that there are issues that I want to help solve and I want to be on the front lines. And it really made an impact on me. And so I'm just really fortunate. Every day I come to work excited about what we're doing. I love being able to work with so many amazing people through our statewide partnerships, through our funded agencies at United Way, to see people every day that are literally changing lives, but also sometimes saving lives every single day. And it's just it's such a gratifying experience to be able to do that, and to be able to come to work every morning and to get to experience that. And so I'm really fortunate for that. And I appreciate you having me on today and getting to talk a little bit about philanthropy with you, and share a little bit of the story, and certainly all your hard work at Philanthropy West Virginia and everything you guys do around the state.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks again so much. And thanks for joining us for another episode of Philanthropy on the Frontlines, hosted by Philanthropy West Virginia. We look forward to seeing you next time, and check us out at philanthropywv.org.